Hey guys, and welcome to another IELTS lesson. In this lesson also we are looking at the reading component, but we are focusing more on the types of questions that you are likely to find when you encounter any IELTS reading test. Is it necessary at all to look at the types of questions? Of course it is. Otherwise, these questions would become your Trojan horse. You need to know the strategy to employ to overcome these questions. You need to know the characteristics of these questions so that you can employ the right tools to answer them correctly. So we'll look at each of the 12 types of questions that you are likely to be asked during any reading test. Multiple choice questions. So for this particular one, it's you have a question and then you'll be given options to choose from. There may be there may be 4 to choose 1, 5 to choose 2, or 6 to choose 3. The commonest is for you to choose 1 out of 4 options, and these questions require that you understand main ideas contained in the text, then you narrow down to specific information to be able to answer these questions. Short answer questions, like the name suggests, you need a word or two to answer them, and these are very direct questions based on the given passage that you have. And you need to go to the passage, you need to read the passage to find the answer to this particular set of questions. Then you have sentence completion questions. You have incomplete sentences, and you have to pick words from the passage to answer them. You think about how grammatically appropriate the words that you choose to complete the sentences are, so that you don't miss the answers. Then for matching sentence endings, you'll be given a number of incomplete sentences. They all do not have endings, and you'll be given a set of endings. Usually the endings will be more than the sentences, and you're supposed to match. Your selection of a particular ending for a sentence shouldn't be because that is how the sentence is usually completed or ended in everyday communication, or every time you hear that sentence, that's how it's ended. No, you need to go to the passage and see how the sentence has been ended for you to get your answer correctly. Then true, false, not given questions, yes, no, not given questions. We'll look at these together because you need the same strategy to tackle them. So under what circumstance would your answer be correct if you choose true, false, or not given, or yes, no, or not given? Your answer would be correct if you choose true or yes. If the statement you have for questions, so we'll refer to them as statement questions. If the statement question that you have, the information contained in there is the same as you have in the passage, but of course, think about synonyms and paraphrase versions. You're not going to see it dito word for word. You're going to see the paraphrase versions of these, but both information should be saying the same thing. There shouldn't be any difference whatsoever in terms of the information or the meaning thereof. Once it's the same, once both are the same, then your answer is either true or yes, depending on the instruction that you have. You cannot interchange these options. If the instruction says you should answer with true, false, not given, and you choose yes, no, especially because they're not given, of course they cannot tell which one you use. So yes is true, but then you cannot interchange them. Just go according to what the instruction is telling you. If there's a contradiction between the information contained in the question and what you have in the passage, then your answer is supposed to be false or no. If there's a contradiction between the question and then the information in the passage, then your answer is false or no. Not given, you choose not given. When there's an extra information, there's an additional information in the question which is not accounted for in the passage. There's an additional information in the question, and this is not accounted for. Nothing was specifically mentioned about that in the passage, then you choose not given. Not given in the sense that per the information you have in the passage, you are unable to tell whether the question is true or false or yes or no. That is why you are going with not given. Let's take examples to understand this better. A slight difference between true, false, not given, and yes, no, not given questions is that true, false, not given usually deal with facts, and yes, no, not given deals with opinions and attitudes. That's just a very slight difference between the two. So let's look at the example to illustrate what I just explained. The passage is telling us that in the 19th century, humans lived in skyscrapers. In the 19th century, humans lived in skyscrapers. If the question says during the 19th century, human beings lived in high-rise buildings. In the 19th century, human beings lived in high-rise buildings. Both information are saying the same thing. So your answer is either true or yes. If the question says during the 19th century, humans lived in one-story buildings, that is a contradiction. One-story building, high-rise buildings, or skyscrapers are not the same thing. One is taller than the other. So there is a contradiction, and so the answer is false or no. If the question says in the 19th and 20th century, human beings lived in high-rise buildings. In the 19th and 20th centuries, human beings lived in high-rise buildings. You have to choose not given, because the passage only told you what pertained to the 19th century and not the 20th century. You don't have to assume. You don't have to assume. So your answer is supposed to be not given. For these 6 types of questions we have just looked at, each set of them, so you take a set of multiple choice questions or a set of short answer questions, the arrangement of the questions would correspond with the arrangement of information that answers them. I take it again. With each set of the 6 types of questions we've just looked at, the arrangement of the questions will correspond with the arrangement of information that answers them. But each type has nothing to do with the other. So how you find or where you find the answers to multiple choice questions will have nothing to do with the order in which you find the answers to, let's say, true, false, not given questions. Take note of that. Let's look at the last 6 set of questions, diagram or map labeling questions. If a place or an item, let's say a machine, is described in the passage, that would be drawn out and you'll be asked to label the parts that you have. The answers to these questions, diagram or map labeling questions, are usually concentrated in one or two paragraphs. So once you're able to find a particular answer to one of the parts, then you can find the others in that same paragraph, or you move to the next one, either before or after, depending on which one you tackled first. Information could also be presented to you in a tabular form for you to complete. To be able to answer these questions, you also need just one or two paragraphs to do this. Read the headings of the table that you have. Read the headings also, if there are any, in the rows and the columns of the table. So for example, if you have a table with the heading stationery, you know that definitely you cannot find a car for an answer in there. So knowledge of the heading will help you to fit in the right answers. You go to the passage, then you get the answers to complete the table that you have. Summary completion questions. A paragraph or a portion of it may be summarized, and you'll be asked to pick words from that paragraph to complete it. Your ability to identify which paragraph or the portion of it that has been summarized would help you to complete the summary that you have. Matching headings to paragraphs questions. You'll be given some paragraphs, and they'll be lettered A, B, C, D, E, F, G to whichever letter. They will be given headings also, and these would have Roman numerals, I to whatever number. Usually the headings are more than the paragraphs, and it's one heading, one paragraph. There's no way that one heading would be appropriate for two paragraphs. Take note of that. To be able to answer matching headings to paragraphs questions, you need to first of all read the entire paragraph. So if you're answering paragraph A, read that paragraph and understand the general information, the gist of that paragraph. Then when you're done, there are three types of sentences you need to read and pay attention to. Read a topic sentence, which is a sentence that has the main idea, and it's usually the first sentence. Sometimes it is not the case. You read the second sentence, which is the supporting sentence, the first supporting sentence, because this throws light on the topic sentence that you have. Then you read the last sentence, which is the concluding sentence, and this summarizes the information that you have. After these two readings, you have to understand what is the paragraph about, what is the central theme of the paragraph that I've just read. Try to understand it in your own way. Then with what you get, with the understanding you get, you go to the list of headings and you see which one fits best for what you have. After these two readings, if you are still unable to get the most appropriate heading, then you have to think about recurring words. Look out for words that keep appearing in every portion of that paragraph, and that may lead you to the most appropriate heading. This should be your last resort when the two readings are not yielding anything. Better still, you can just leave that and go to other paragraphs, answer them, and come back to this. If you're able to reduce the number of headings that you have by correctly matching it with the paragraphs, then you'll be left with just a couple of headings to get the right one for the one that you're having challenges with. Matching information to paragraphs. You'll be given some information, and your job, your task is to tell where they are contained in the paragraphs that you have. You look at the paragraph, you look at the information, go and find the paraphrase version of that information from the paragraphs that you have, and you just find the answer to these set of questions. Matching headings to paragraphs and matching information to paragraphs they help each other, so to say. Your ability to answer one set would help you to answer the other. If you're able to correctly match headings to paragraphs, it'll be easier for you to match information to paragraphs, because the headings are the summary of information contained in each of the paragraphs. Sometimes also your ability to find certain information in the paragraphs that you have would help you match the most appropriate headings to the paragraphs. They always don't appear in the same, both don't always appear in the same questions, but when they do, they would help you find the answers to each of the two sets. Matching features. Matching features. You deal mostly with names over here. Names, then maybe statements ascribed to them or their inventions, or you deal with dates and what happened on those dates with regard to information you have in the passage. Or you may deal with technical terms and their definition. So you have the terms over there and you have to get their definition. So you'll be given the items and their description. So if you're dealing with terms, you have the terms, then you have their definitions for you to match. Of course, you have to go to the passage to find the answers. If you're dealing with names, then their inventions. So while you are skimming, we'll talk about skimming more when you get to tips and strategies. When you're skimming, you should be able to underline the keywords that you have. So in this case, if you read the questions, which you have to do first, if you read the questions first, if you find the names in the questions, you underline them. Then as you skim, you underline those names in the passage, because that is how you're going to find the answers when it comes to the scanning and close reading stages. These are the 12 questions that you encounter in the reading. It's unlikely that you'll find all 12 of them in a test, but of course it's important for you to know about all of them so that whichever one you encounter in a test, you'll be able to tackle it strategically. Cheerio and see you in the next lessons.